RJ, just a couple days after what was arguably their worst game of the season, a day after they were in the national headlines, the Seattle Kraken of all teams, and unfortunately, not for very good reasons. Kraken are able to come out here and beat up on Sidney Crosby, kind of.
Yeah, maybe not so much on Crosby, but on this Penguins team. And I wouldn't go as far as to say they beat up on them, really. Really, I think the Penguins beat up on the Kraken for almost all of this game. The Kraken give their customary 10 minutes of effort. And you know what? It's enough. So, I feel like I'm going crazy with this again. But yeah, they get away with it often enough that no wonder they don't give a full 60, because apparently, again, you don't need to give a full 60 a lot of the time in the NHL, apparently. But the Kraken with a big third period comeback, they get the win. I'm sorry if this, sounds a little cynical. I've watched this too many times. I don't want to ruin the dance party. Dylan, I'm going to shut up.
It's fine. It's fine. You got to speak your truth, RJ. That's what everybody wants out of us. Yeah, I mean, look, they do get the win, and they're able. Basically, Joey was able to keep the game close early on so that they have the opportunity late in the game to do what they do. And they go out there and they get a couple goals in the third period and they walk away with this one. Capo Caco, they had to trade for somebody, but now you can get an empty net goal from somebody. That's fun. But yeah, this is unfortunately, this doesn't go a long way to answering a lot of the questions with this team. I think we're still going to have those. That first period was just, it was really ugly. You're able to get one with Chandler Stevenson scoring. I mean, it feels a little bit like a tale of two goaltenders, right? Joey Decord really keeps his team in it. Tristan Jarry loses the game for his team, realistically,
yeah,
right? Like, so there is that element to this game. But look, we still got to see some good stuff. Eli Tolvanen able to finish on a great offensive chance set up by Shane Wright and Josh Mahura. I mean, they both really put in great work to kick off that play and get it going, and they're able to get a goal there. Adam Larson's able to pick up a pair of assists. I'm always going to be down and mention that. And RJ, yes, it was maybe a weak goal allowed by Tristan Jarry, but the Kraken scored a shorty.
They did score a shorthanded goal. And you know what? As much as Stevenson gets a little credit for putting the puck on net when he had the opportunity, really that one, the credit should go to Joey Decord, who again was the Kraken's best player in this one. And he makes that breakout pass to create the 2-on-1 and the entire chance. It's his first NHL assist, which it's just wild to think about because it feels like he should have one by now. But good for Joey on that play. Good for Joey all game. I mean, he stole this one for the Kraken. And I happen to be wearing this shirt already. Before you chirp me for wearing Penguins yellow like you did right before we started recording, I happen to be wearing this shirt. Decided not to change it because, yeah. So Joey, of course, with the ASU hockey program. And so I happen to have this shirt on. Figure, you know what? I'll keep it tonight. It feels right.
Yeah. No, it is. It's all good.
You call it Gatorade yellow instead of Penn's yellow also.
Yeah,
well, it's a little different yellow than the lemon lime Gatorade.
It is a little bit. That's more of a mac and cheese yellow, I would say. But before we get to the super chats that are already stacking up, thanks everybody for those. Want to mention Queen Anne Beer Hall, a wonderful sponsor for these post-game lives. Again, these East Coast games, it's only $6.40 right now. Go have some dinner at Queen Anne Beer Hall, right? You can watch the post game on your phone from the beer hall, follow along with us, catch any other good sports going on. It's really just NBA action on a Tuesday in early or mid-January, but you watch some NBA on the screens there. Watch us on your phone. Enjoy a nice pretzel. Enjoy a beer over at Queen Anne Beer Hall.
Enjoy some mac and cheese, the color of the shirt.
Cheese. There we go. Light kicking us off with the first super chat. Mediocre at best first, nearly unstoppable third. That's Disco Dan Firebirds hockey, baby. And maybe we haven't talked about that enough this year, RJ, just with the fact that the team, has been, not started games on time, but they've certainly been around to help finish them. That was kind of Firebirds hockey. That was, one of the things that people down there in the Valley we're seeing on a pretty regular basis from those Dan Bylsma coach teams.
Yeah, the ability to consistently make adjustments, especially after the first period. I mean, when we would go down to those Firebird games, you would always be watching the first period very carefully. You kind of have your read on the way things were going. And then you'd see a totally different team come out for the second, and especially the third. They were really good at making those adjustments. And I think it took really till the third before we really saw that in this game. But I mean, credit to the Kraken in those moments, right? You look at that goal that ties the game, the Alexiak goal, and it's not just Alexiak weaving through a few defenders, right? There's a reason those Penguins defenders were way too tired to do anything about Jamie Alexiak coming down the ice. And it's because they had been tired out by a great Kraken forecheck and cycle game that set it up the entire previous shift. And yeah, the Kraken shot a lot of pucks kind of into Penguins players' bodies, but they had to be consistently bodying out Kraken players from the front of the net. And that's exhausting. And it's the kind of softens it up, if you will, for that Jamie Alexiak goal.
No, it does. Again, it is the tale of two different teams every time this team comes out there. And it's, in some ways it's nice that they do those right things, and we're able to talk about that and we're able to point those out. It's still so frustrating. Like, you can't just give me a full 45. Don't even have to give me the full 60. Just give me a 45, right? And I think this team is in much better shape than what they've been. But yeah, it's at least they do it when they need to. And you look at stuff like that goal, or you look at one like the Ellie Tolvanen goal that I talked about earlier, right? Josh Mahura does a great job of, again, taking the puck in deep, taking space. The Penguins are going to give it to him because they've got to collapse in kind of around the net. He takes that space. He kind of circles below the goal line, goes around the net, goes up the other half boards. That draws the Penguins away from the middle, right? He's able to leave that puck for Shane Wright. Shane Wright's able to go get it and then come in. And because those Penguins had to kind of draw away from the middle to go deal with Josh Mahura coming down low, it's able to open up a little bit of space for Ellie Tolvanen to get lost net front. Shane Wright makes a beautiful play across the crease to get it out to him, and you pick up a goal that way. Again, they do know how to take advantage of these things. They do know how to kind of play defenses against themselves. It's just they don't know how to do it early on in a game. B with the next super chat. Everyone rejoice. Joey Decord got his first NHL point tonight. 2.06 goals saved above expected per money puck. A 939 save percentage. I love him so much. They all owe him dinner. Feels like you could say that about every game Joey has started this year, though.
Right. I mean, you throw it back to the last start that he had against Buffalo, or so many games this year where he just keeps the Kraken in it. They are getting legitimate top 10 NHL goaltending whenever he's in the net. And oh boy, do they need it. I mean, they certainly need it in the first period in this game, where if not for Joey, if it's most other goalies in net, the Penguins probably have a 2 or 3 goal lead, but he gives them a chance to at least get to that point where they can become a different team.
Yeah, no, he really does. It, again, really had to keep them in this one. Kraken outshot 16-2 in that first period, and those are shots on goal. Look at shot attempts. It's pretty ugly as well. The Penguins were able to get some high danger looks in there. It was one where they really did need their goaltender to step up because nobody else was. It's the bottom line. They were able to pull things together for the second, and obviously come out hot for the third. But that first period could have been a lot more ugly than just 1-1 at the end of it. And that is all because of Joey Decord. And Trish, in what world does Joey not get a star? And I'm with Trish on this one. First NHL point, winning goaltender, does a great job. Makes a ton of saves.
In the messed up world of Pittsburgh and their bias still. And I know you've been on their side of the bias for a long time growing up a Penguins fan, but see, this is the problems that it causes.
I guess so. Yeah, I would probably find a way to get Joey in there. Maybe they just didn't know. His first NHL point and everything. It's very possible. I don't know.
I feel like naming Joey a star would even be a way of kind of respecting your own team, right? Just being like, look, we put a lot of shots on this guy.
Yeah, and they guys stopped it. Yeah, no, I feel like maybe Jamie Alexiak's there just because former Penguin.
Yeah. Bit. Okay. Well,
I think
I mean the big goal.
Yeah, and then Tolvanen first star with the game winner. Angela Bug with the super chat. Okay, RJ can be forgiven for the gold shirt now that we know it's a Sun Devils shirt. Joey.
Yeah, it's I got this when I was like touring the ASU campus, thinking about going there. I visited the rink that they played at, and I've since talked with Joey about that rink too. It's not the Mullet Arena, the new one. The like the ceiling on it, the roof is so low that any puck that's just chipped up in the air will kind of hit that and knock back down. It's just a really odd building to play at, but love that Joey was the first NHL player out of that program, and I do like this shirt. even though it could be construed as Penguins yellow if you're just looking at it from the chest up.
I'm just saying, when you first popped on and then there was no, obvious
Yeah.
crest there, I was like, okay, that's an interesting choice, RJ. But it's all good. Zoe with the next super chat. Evans Monty was new. Should they split Dunn and Lars? And now Zoe's been on this with the D pairs, RJ, right? Like coming in all throughout this year, talking about them. I thought it was fine going with that Evans Montour D pair. I do think like they did need to kind of shuffle things up. I think barring something just, truly cataclysmic, they're just not going to break up Dunn Lars, right? Like there's just no way.
Yeah, I can't imagine that they would. I wouldn't mind seeing it just to see what happens. Like, look, part of the shift that we need to have as far as expectations on the season and what we can get out of the rest of the year, part of that is knowing what you have in different combinations with your defense. And so I wouldn't mind breaking that up and seeing a few different looks later on in the season, as the playoffs, get further and further away. I don't know. I still don't know that any of the 3D pairs played all that great tonight for most of the game. But then it's a whole team problem. So I don't know how to evaluate it, right? Because look, in the first period, they couldn't clear the puck out of their zone. They were sloppy. The chemistry appeared to not be there. The second period wasn't much better. But then in the third period, they get better, but so does everybody. I don't know how to evaluate, the new D pairs in a situation like that because it's the whole team.
Because the bad defense that we've been seeing, especially this road trip, but it's been kind of like becoming more and more of a problem as the season has gone on. It's bad team defense, right? It's not even so much the D pairs. Yes, there has been issues with the D pairs as far as guys being able to get to the net in ways that they just shouldn't be. But so much of like, especially that Detroit game, last game, so much of today, it's the forward group, man. Like the forward group in the defensive zone looks very lost. They're chasing pucks. They are not trying to anticipate anything. They're not trying to sit in passing lanes. They are not trying to go and try to, take away the open man before the pass decides to go over to them, right? They are just purely chasing the puck. And when you're playing a team like the Penguins, who, have a lot of very good veterans on their team. They have a very, entrenched system that they're going to run in the offensive zone under Mike Sullivan, who's been there for a decade now, just about. They know what they're doing, and you have to make life difficult for them. And the bottom line is the team defense doesn't really do that right now against anybody. And I think that's what you were really seeing at the beginning of this one. And it felt like the team defense as a whole kind of got better. Yeah, the D pairs did a better job on the interior, but also the forward group did a much better job in the second period, not letting the Penguins get to the inside as much, because a lot of those responsibilities are on the forwards when you start talking about that kind of second level out, which includes, that kind of mid to high part of the slot. That's where the Penguins were able to generate a lot of chances. They were able to get a lot of bodies inside there. Those are areas where you need like weak side wingers in, or maybe your centerman even, right? And there was just not a lot of that in the first period. There wasn't a lot of guys going and supporting the defensemen who would have to go into the corner or below the goal line to chase the Penguins. There was kind of no secondary presence there. Normally that would be, your centerman. Just kind of wasn't really happening. Looked better than the Detroit game where it was just like comically bad, but it was still not good at the start of this one. So I don't know how much there is to really judge the overall performance based on the D pairs, just because the team defense has just been so weak.
Yeah, no, and I think you make a good point there with like the team defense. I just see like that first Penguins goal where Dunn just kind of doesn't go to the net front. Larson gets beat by his man. I'm like, yeah, you know what? I wouldn't mind breaking that up.
Yeah, I just coaches hate doing it, And to be honest,
I really do. I mean, we've been through like what Hackstall and Bilesma. Like they love to keep those D pairs as consistent as possible.
Well, and the other thing is with that D pair, look, we've seen Riker Evans and Adam Larson before. We've seen, you know what I mean? Like, because Vince Dunn missed a decent amount of games this season. Like, we've seen what some of those other pairs look like. I don't know that based on any of those, I would say they look better.
No, I wouldn't say they look better for sure. I'm saying if you want to mess around with stuff, because
just make a change.
Winning games isn't all that important at this point.
That is true. Amanda with the next super chat. Appreciate all the super chats, everybody. Feeling solid about tracking down a number 35 Winter Classic jersey. Thank you all of ECH for being the most consistent part of the Kraken season. Appreciate that. And yes, this community is awesome, night in, night out. And yeah, if you can find a Joey Decord Winter Classic jersey, you're probably going to have to pay a little for it, but I got to imagine that's a worthwhile investment.
Yeah, that's a good choice. I don't really have many Kraken jerseys because, like, when would I be able to wear them? Almost never. But I have the Yanni Gord one that we got for our jersey review before the team even started playing, right when the jerseys
Yep.
came out. And then I did get a Winter Classic jersey because it was just so special. I'm meaning to see if I can get the Decord 35 on the back. That is the player to have.
Yeah, definitely. So good luck on that, Amanda. And then Gregory, here it is, RJ. It just feels like it takes so long in between, but it is lemon lime Gatorade time, baby. Oh, appreciate it, Gregory. So excited to be back and being able to do this. And as Gregory's saying here, sorry that I missed the last victory. It was moving to Minnesota. All right. Sorry to see you go to Minnesota, Gregory. Gonna miss having you around. Great third period. Congrats, RJ, on the nuptials. There. I mean, congrats on the move, Gregory. Hope it all went smoothly and everything was good there. And then yeah, RJ joining Gregory is one of two guys get married this year.
That's right. Yeah. Congrats to you, Gregory, for that and for the move. Yeah. Again, hope it all went smoothly and everything. And as Dylan enjoys his lemon lime Gatorade without any alcohol, I'm guessing. Although by your reaction there,
no, it's
I'm
very
not so
cold.
sure.
This has been in the back of the fridge because it just kept getting pushed back there, right? Like there was no need for it, so it kept getting pushed back. It was the back of the fridge. That was a little bit of brain freeze, caught me unaware. I was unprepared.
Okay, I'll take your word for it.
Yes, that is all. That is all. And then Jenna here with the super chat. Hayes had 6 hits. Turbo had 4. Fourth line there, RJ. And yes, we did see John Hayden come in for Ty Cartier. Carts, he's been doing his thing this year, but I could see why maybe the coaching staff decides to sit him for a game, bring in John Hayden. And yes, John Hayden made his presence felt physically in this one for sure.
For sure. I mean, 6 hits in a little over 10 minutes, almost 10 and a half minutes of ice time. And he was somebody that you noticed whenever he was out there, especially net front earlier on in the game, right? Just the amount that he was making the Penguins defenders have to battle him in front of the net. And I love that the fourth line, they just simplified things. They dumped the puck in, they'd go and they'd cycle it, and they would just make you have to defend them physically. And we don't always see enough of that from the Kraken. And I love that that's been a little bit of a constant from the fourth line this year, no matter who's on it. But it's good to see it with some other players, especially with Yanni Gord out of the lineup, as then it sounds like he might be for a while longer based on Ron Francis's injury update there. It's good to have a fourth line that can go and do that.
And it really did feel like the fourth line had a very specific identity in this one with John Hayden out there, right? And it is kind of John Hayden's going to be your big physical presence. You've got Mitchell Stevens kind of then being, more traditional fourth line center. Let me just try to, win faceoffs when I can. Let me just try to kind of push the puck up the ice when I can. And then Turbo, who's going to be your kind of aggressive forechecker, kind of just go in there and try to stir things up, try to create a little bit of chaos in a different way from what John Hayden's going to do. Turbo using a little bit more speed versus Hayden's size. But it very much felt like, okay, it's a very traditional looking fourth line for this group that we're just not really used to seeing.
Yeah, again, very traditional looking, far cry from what we had, two years ago with the Sprong, Donato, and Geeky fourth line. But this is generally more what you'll used to see around the league.
Yep. Moving over into chat. I mean, just the first 2 things, right? Trish starting us off with the lulz, Maddie with the hilarious. Sarah excited about Joey getting the point, but just a lot of people. Rebecca, what did I just watch? Right? Jessica, what? Like, this was really one of those. Given the way this team had been playing and the trajectory of everything, and kind of the drama that came out of yesterday and the storylines. Not expecting the team to kind of be able to rebound out of a situation like that. And yet they were able to go out there and play to their team identity as a team that's going to make a big push at the end and sometimes come through, and they came through.
Yeah, they did. Although I know everyone's kind of surprised, like, what did I just watch? I felt like this still wasn't very surprising to me, especially with all the drama and all the stuff yesterday, that, yeah, they would find a way to win this game. I don't want the cynicism to creep in here, but it just feels like, of course they did.
Well, but it's one where, like, you could see a team, coming out extra motivated after getting embarrassed in Detroit, and then also having some of, maybe the organization's dirty laundry exposed yesterday, but then they come out and they look, almost as bad as ever at the beginning of the game. And so you're just like, oh no, this team is just going to do its thing. And at any point now, the Penguins, these shots are just going to start going in for them.
Yeah, well, that's kind of how I would have thought it would go. Of course, they weren't like motivated and gave the effort. I don't know. That's Kraken hockey, baby.
We get motivated once we're down and there's 20 minutes left. That's what we've
seen this so many times this season.
Yeah. Light here with the super chat with a question for you, Armchair RJ.
Let's go.
It's your new nickname. If Kakko would sign a 5-year deal at 3.5 per right now, would you sign it as general manager? I'm going to assume it's 3.5 per because I don't know. I don't think that's league minimum.
Legal. I think that's below league minimum. So we'll have to. 3.5 mil total. Absolutely, I would do that. Oh, it's tough because that's like right at the number where I would really. Let me take a look.
You say yes. We say yes. Did you see how all those other Kraken players missed the empty net and he was the one to be able to make it, RJ? Okay, that's the kind of depth scorer this team needs.
I know. I'm wary of term and
5-year term on like a 23-year-old. You're worried about that term?
No, well, just because again, we've only seen 11 games of him in a Kraken sweater, right? If he somehow turns out to be just like fourth liner type guy, 3.5 is like way too much, even with the cap going up. Yes, I'll do it. I'll do Sean 100%. Archie, come on, I'll do it. Yes, I'll do it. I just wanted to kind of really think it through. Give me a minute here, but yeah, I would do it.
Look, I think bare minimum he turns into what he was with the Rangers for a couple of years, which is an extremely good third line player who's able to give you some depth scoring. I don't think you totally regret that contract too bad, especially with the cap going up and stuff. So I would definitely do it and potentially lock him down on the chance that yes, with the additional playing time here, I mean, he was able to pick up 20 minutes and 28 seconds tonight in this game. I mean, that's something worth talking about with him. He's being given extra opportunities and he looks like he is really taking those opportunities and he is trying to, come in and kind of shake off some of that reputation that he did develop in New York. So I would be willing to take that bet on somebody who was a former second overall pick. Am I expecting him to turn into Sam Reinhart? No, but I would expect that you should be able to at least get 3.5 per during his prime years out of him.
Yeah, and let me just address some of the comments. Sean, he's not a fourth liner. Kylie, term, he's only 23. RJ bringing some real Ron Francis energy there from Jason. My hesitation, and I'll point to Ellie Tolvanen as an example, right, where the Kraken did give him a contract at 3.4, near that number, right, 3.475. Mm-hmm. So almost that exact number. And that contract was coming off of a season where puts up 41 points, some decent scoring. That number looks like it's worth it. Through half a season this year, he's 17 points. Like he hasn't really kind of had the same production. He's still playing well, but when those spots could be filled by somebody on an ELC, which the Kraken will have coming up soon, that's the only reason I question. And you look at Tolvanen, like he's a good player, but he's still a very different player than he was when he first arrived in Seattle. Just the style of game is different. So Kakko is not a fourth liner at all right now, but there's still a level of unpredictability with players. So I'm not saying he's going to turn into one, but those are the risks involved. That's all I'm saying.
No, and I do understand that. I just think that Kakko, as Tolvanen was never like looking good as part of a finally they have a legit first line, right? And Kakko brings more than Tolvanen did just because the defense helps give him a safer floor, I feel like, and the net front ability for me.
It does, although that Gord, Tolvanen, and Bjorkstrand line was kind of their legit first line for a little while. We forget.
Yes, but it didn't feel like Tolvanen was the key to making that work all the time. The way sometimes it feels like Kakko is really helping out like a Matty Beniers.
No, you're right.
Let's see, Matty, I stopped paying attention, but then we started scoring. I feel like I should be happy at the win, but like, what was that? Again, that was Kraken hockey, Matty. It's just what we do. And General Pancake's first game in the Decord jersey was a good one for Decord, and obviously lots of people very excited about Joey and how good he did in this one, RJ. And then Fusion Mix. I think Tristan Jarry might not be a very good goaltender, you guys.
Yeah, he was really bad in this one. I mean, that Stevenson goal just cannot go in that moment for the Penguins. And then even the Alexiak goal, you'd really like your goalie to make a save there. Like, I know everyone's tired. It's a good location for the shot, but get out, challenge, and make a save. Like, a goalie should be able to do that when he sees the puck that clearly. Probably the second biggest reason the Kraken won tonight, I'd say, is Tristan Jarry.
Yeah, I agree. And then Daniel, since moving into our new place last summer, I've been missing my Kraken colored Air Jordans. Just found them yesterday. Maybe it's an omen.
Okay. Okay.
If the season really turns around, they go on some like 7, 8, 9 game win streak. It is
Everyone
because
remember
Daniel
what you
found
did right now. Yeah.
Yes, it's because Daniel found the shoes, and also RJ will never be able to take off the gold shirt. Angela Bug, I don't want to start trading with the Penguins. Kyle Dubas will absolutely end up with Ty Cartier somehow. Boy, Ty Cartier sure sounds like a Kyle Dubas type player.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I mean, yeah, Suboy also.
Yes, that as well. The one, I guess, like benefit of that is Kyle Dubas would overpay for somebody like Ty Cartier. So
yeah,
it would, that would maybe help the sting a little bit.
We might miss him. We wouldn't miss the contract.
Yeah. Let's see. Lindsay, yay for youth getting points, I guess. I do think that is still important for this one. Dexter, Kako, and Wright, 2028. Let's go. I don't know for what office that a Finn and a Canadian would hold, RJ, but I think I'm still all for it.
We can find an office for that, I think.
Yes.
Create one.
Yep. Chip, well, Money Puck says we had no business winning this one, and I tend to agree. 9% on the meter, lol. Look, it's so weird looking at Money Puck, because if you go back to that Detroit game, I believe that Detroit game was pretty close to 50-50, right? Because a lot of those situations, it just the models don't really take into account like the really ridiculous defense that the Kraken was playing at the beginning of that one. So like, yeah, they were goals from like weird spots, but like they should have been a lot higher percentage chances than they were. And I almost feel like the opposite is true in this one, where the Penguins do well on a Money Puck thing because they got the volume, but you look at the chances, some of the chances that I don't necessarily feel like they should be worth as much as they're weighted vis-a-vis the Detroit chances that feel like very underrepresented.
I don't know. You don't think this is indicative, right? I think Money Puck's got what, 4 to 2.5 expected goals, and that includes like the empty netter at the end. So really,
right,
4
so that,
to like 1.5. That feels right to me.
Yeah, maybe. It feels like there's been other games.
It's not always correct,
right?
But
it just feels like there's been other games in which Joey has saved like 2.5 expected, goals above expected, and it feels like he's had to put in a lot more work than in this one.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, they didn't have the Penguins didn't have as much like grade A, had to just
like the high danger stuff wasn't as there. Is I guess what
it wasn't. Yeah, but I mean, I guess really it's on the Kraken side really, where it's just how little they generated.
Well, yeah, but that's a given. I'm actually surprised if they're over 2. Like that's a good day if the Kraken get over 2 expected goals. But yeah, that Detroit game was just wild. I think that Patrick Kane goal, that was like, it was like weighted extremely low, and it's just a wide open tap it. I'm like, what are we doing here?
You can use your eyes. That's like 99.9, 0.99 expected goals.
Exactly. B talked about Shane's assist on the Tolvey goal, how beautiful it was. I mean, that, we talk about watching Sidney Crosby on the other side. That felt very much like a Crosby thing to do, RJ, right? Just pick up the puck, go with speed down towards the goal line, and then right as you hit the last possible moment that you'd be able to hit that angle to get a pass across the crease, you send the pass across the crease, and it's right on the money. I mean, that is something that I remember seeing a lot from the guy on the other end.
Yeah, if you go watch that back in slow motion too, I mean, the width that he had to fit that puck in there, 1 through the Penguins player's glove, and then 2 to avoid Jarry's stick. I mean, it's less than a puck width.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, like he waited until the absolute last possible moment, and then he sent the play across. But I love seeing that from him, right? And I do love that he has been thinking about those, kind of net front moments and throwing pucks to those areas. And I think it's also worth noting that he had a Penguin on him, right? It was one where he kind of was left the puck by Mahura. He's got to really kind of collect it and do a little work there. And then he knows he's got to move with speed. He's got somebody right on him, and he doesn't really care that he's got somebody on him. He's got his head up. He's looking to see if he has somebody net front and he can make that pass over to them. That tells me that he is starting to really kind of figure things out, and he's starting to get to that point in the NHL where he is comfortable becoming a playmaker. And I'm just happy to see that from him. George, Joey bailed them out in this game. They should have lost. Nice to see a win. Tankathon takes a break. It does feel like every time they're on the verge of really being able to drop solidly down, RJ, maybe into that top 4 range, they just go, not today.
Yep. It really does feel like they have that floor that they can't go beneath. Something will happen that they have to win the game.
Yeah. Let's see. Virginia, RJ, I appreciate your cynicism. I'm right there with you. So do you have some companionship with you, and Sean as well? I'm with you, RJ. This is not the way. That team got away with it again and learns nothing. Cannot even tank right. Same vibes as Buffalo. I mean, look, I'm not disagreeing with it. It's just gotta find some joy in a season like this wherever you can.
Yep. So thank you everyone for letting me get that out right away. And just so I have gotten it out, I can process it and deal with it. But yeah, that's kind of how I feel, but we got to find the joy.
Yes. And then Sean here with the super chat. I know you guys have stated this, but Shane absolutely needs more ice time. Any more thoughts on what's going on there? I mean, this is a game, RJ, where we see Matty Beniers get 20 minutes, right? Like that first line got a lot of ice time. Matty Beniers gets over 20. Jaden Schwartz and Capo Caco go with him. Chandler Stevenson down below 17 minutes. And yet, none of that trickled down to Shane Wright, who finishes with 12-24.
This clearly seems to be part of the plan with him. I mean, I guess they don't want to give him more ice time quite yet, or they feel that giving Chandler Stevenson, or in this case, like the Beniers line and Kako, that ice time is going to help them win, which that I do think so. I think that line is actually better and would give them a better chance to win. But yeah, I don't know. I'm looking at the McCann, Wright, Tolvanen line, 7:04 of ice time in the game at 5-on-5. That is the 4th most of the forward line. So that's kind of 4th line type minutes. They're the only line with an expected goal share, according to Money Puck, over 32%. They're at 84%. So there's 84, then followed by the Stevenson line at 32%. So the underlying numbers, at least according to Money Puck's algorithm, are good. The shots on goal 3-1 in favor of the right line. All the other lines got outshot. So I don't know.
It doesn't make a ton of sense either, because it's not like this was a game that was ruled by special teams moments, right? Like, each team had one power play. Like, right?
Most games are 5-on-5.
Yeah, like there kind of isn't an excuse for it. So, we're seeing the one line that has obviously taken a step above the others for the most part in play has been the Matty Beniers line, and they are starting to get more ice time, and we've been kind of talking about that. So, he's at least getting the ice time. Capo Caco's getting the ice time. I got to think at some point Shane will get it. I am looking, and Shane did get 18 shifts, which is in the upper half for this team. I mean, Jared McCann had 19, but also you had like Brandon Tanev get 18. So, I don't entirely know what you do with that.
Yeah, but you're right. I mean, Sean saying like that it's that low is crazy. It's honestly baffling at this point. I'm with you on that. I know I'm going to repeat it again. I know I tweeted it. I know I mentioned it on the podcast, but I really think it's worth mentioning just to point out how out of step with any other comparable situation in the league this is, as far as Shane's ice time. And you look at like Macklin Celebrini, I use as a comp, and maybe he's a different level of player, but he's 18. He's getting almost 20 minutes of ice time a game. Yuri Slavkovsky, I think that's a fair comparison. 83 games in his career with more ice time than Shane Wright's career high. Leo Carlson in Anaheim, 66 games with more ice time than Shane's career high. Logan Cooley, 64. And those numbers are probably higher because those numbers are like a few days old. Right. I just like the other players in that range and from the same draft class, because I know COVID messed up that whole draft class.
No,
I know not all those guys from the OHL. Yeah. Is that what you're going to say?
No. My thing is that it's not a comparable situation only because all those guys are on teams that were expecting to be bad. Now, you could argue that it's become a comparable situation because the Kraken are bad and going nowhere, so you might as well start giving him the ice time. But
Utah,
I think
though?
Well,
Cooley?
yeah, but most of those games for Cooley probably also happened last year, right? Like
No,
it's
no,
not
I think
all
Cooley
just
has
this
played
year.
12 of his last 13 with more ice time than Shane's
Okay,
career
yeah,
high.
well, yes, that's 12 of 60 something. I'm just saying, like, they haven't even played 60 something games this year. So I'm just trying to say, certainly with Slough and certainly Macklin Celebrini, right? Those are different situations in the sense that they were brought in and they were immediately put into the top 6 because they were on teams that knew they were not going to be competitive. The Kraken were trying to be competitive, and so they wanted to slow roll him. Now, again, I'm with you. That should be done, right? There's no point in sticking to that at this point because the season's lost. But I do think that that is an important distinction that kind of can come into play there, as far as meaning that they're not exactly apples for apples.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that distinction. I think that is an important distinction to make. But again, like I'll point to Cooley, more than half his games this season have been more than Shane Wright's career high. 40 out of his 42 games this year have more ice time than Shane got tonight.
It is his second full year in the NHL, and it's Shane's first, though.
Yeah, you're not going to find an exact apples to apples situation.
No, I'm just saying because that's the only reason that the Kraken are doing this is because they thought they were going to be competitive at the beginning of the year, and they wanted to shelter and bring him along slowly. So there is reasoning, and we do know that the reasoning for that, at least early on. The question becomes, should that reasoning hold? I think we're all in agreement that reasoning should not hold at this point. So I think the question is more so why is the reasoning still there when it doesn't need to be, or it doesn't make sense to have it there?
Yeah. And I do think at a certain point they're going to make a decision on the season and be like, okay, this is when we're kind of calling it, and change that. I hope they do. But and then if they don't change it, then I'll complain more loudly. But until then, I'll
it felt like we were really close to that, RJ. And then, as a couple of people are pointing out here, first with Rogue Wave Creative, then with Sean, but Rogue Wave Creative, that Ron Francis interview was interesting. Cynical, you are not, RJ. This team's a yo-yo. And Sean saying that Francis interviewed offered nothing. Was it, you know what I mean? Like that whole situation during the pregame, to have the general manager on to address things, obviously in light of the report from Elliot Friedman yesterday, and then obviously we certainly had our opinions on it. You don't see that very often, that the general manager has to be part of the pregame package, and that they hold it to like be part of really like right when things are kicking off, and so that the most amount of people will see it.
They promoted it ahead of time.
They promoted it. Yeah. Like that was kind, it felt like a little bit like a true address from the person at the top. What were your thoughts on it? Because I kind of walked away being like, okay, it's damage control, but it felt like it was like soft damage control.
Soft damage control is actually a perfect way to describe it. I'm glad you started on this, because that's really what it felt like to me. And, he addressed, some of the different reports that came out. First of all, trying to clarify on the Todd Leiweke visiting the team for the road trip, said that his Leiweke's schedule kind of freed up after some meetings in LA were canceled due to the fires. But it was his birthday on the weekend, and I think he just wanted to go to some hockey games, was ultimately the reasoning given. I don't know that I really fully buy that someone would want to go to Buffalo in the middle of January to just go watch some hockey games for their birthday. I just do not believe that that's the full reason that he would go and make that trip. Nice try, Ron Francis, and maybe that is the truth, but I'm skeptical. I'll say that much. And then on the McClellan thing, I mean, he didn't really say much on that report. Just, I'm the GM. I hired Dan. He's my coach, and we're working together to try and fix things. So went out and he, disputed, if that was the case. I'm the GM. I hired Dan. So that, is contrary to, he's the GM. No one's really arguing, debating that.
That was very much a question, though.
But yeah, and I guess he did hire Dan. That's no one's really debating that either. But didn't really address the meat of that issue, I feel like.
No, and I think that's in his lack of saying anything, that's pretty telling. It very much felt like they were like, okay, we got to say something here. Let's say enough that it should, in theory, kind of calm it all down, and then we'll just kind of go from there. But neither thing really made me walk away from it as like, oh, well, there's reasoning. There's like good examples, or he really pushed back on this strongly, or anything like that. It was very, very, like I said, it was soft. It came across very kind of soft to me. I don't know. It was not what I wanted when I was like, oh, okay, this is going to happen
Gonna
here.
set the record straight
Yeah,
here.
yeah, yeah, let's
No.
go. And then it just really kind of wasn't that at all. So I don't really know what was going on with that. And then Michael with the super chat here. This notion that Stevenson has to play because he is paid a lot doesn't make sense if he loses you games and fans that cost more. I mean, look, they are starting to work back Chandler Stevenson, but yeah, I mean, I get it. And look, Stevenson, the analytics are really bad. The eye test is bad at times. He does find the way to produce, though, in a way that, look, not many guys on this team are able to, right? Like, just guys on this team are not able to collect points for whatever reason, right? It's different reasons for a lot of them, but for whatever reason, guys find it very hard to get on the score sheet. Chandler Stevenson does find a way to accumulate points, RJ. He does find a way to pick up goals. I will give that to him because, look, he's still playing in the top league in the world, and he is still able to accomplish that, even if every other measure of the game says he is not performing well.
Yes, and he is producing on the score sheet. And I see Kylie's comment about that too. About how we kind of immediately tack a bad thing, but don't give praise for the recent scoring. And like he has produced points, and there was even on the on the pass to like Vanelli Tolvanen's goal the other game, right? Like that was a nice backhander to kind of set up the shot. Like he is doing some good things. It's still massively outweighed by the bad things, and that's kind of why we are overall critical. But that's, I think we should give some credit for the goals. I think, you look at two of the last three goals, and they were on, again, I'm not trying to take away anything, but they're on very simple shots that any NHL goalie really should save. But you know what? Good for him throwing the puck on net. That's something that the team needs to do more of. I mean, even though he's not doing a lot of it, really, they just happen to be going in. I'm sorry. I know qualifying this.
It's hard. It's hard.
Watch the goals.
I know. No, it is difficult, right? Like there's no way about that. Look, it is one where, yes, he's throwing pucks on net and taking that chance, and they are going in for him right now, and he is getting, maybe he's getting a little lucky with that, but that is something that we've criticized a lot of players on this team for not doing. So yes, I will give him props for doing that. The defense, just, it needs to be better, right? Like I think that's fair at this point to say. But yeah, no, like I said, he's done a good job also of starting to pick up points at 5-on-5, not just having the power play production. That was another thing that we were very critical of. A lot of his points recently have been at 5-on-5 versus just on the power play. He has been able to come back up from being the literal worst player in the NHL from like an expected goal share perspective. He is no longer dead last, so there is improvement there. Like that does mean that he is on the right trend. So I will agree with all that stuff. But yeah, I mean, he's no longer quite at over two for one. Chances are happening against you versus going for you. So again, there has been improvement here. It's just still he's their worst performing forward. Like there is still, like, that is kind of undebatable.
You did sound a little bit like me there too, and I love this comment from Amanda. RJ, you really tried your best to compliment Stevie. Thank you, Amanda. I was trying. The Jessica, this post game will be titled "RJ Apologizes." You're not wrong, RJ. No apologies.
It's tough. It's tough. That is true. Yeah, no, it is tough. Byron, 7 shots from the forwards seemed less than ideal, and before Shane's, well, I'm pretty sure it was 3. Like again, this is where, right, we give credit to Chandler Stevenson where it's due, although that was his only shot this game. But it is true. Like this is a team that still fundamentally does not like to shoot the puck. They do not go for volume. There's just nobody on this team that wants to go for volume outside of maybe Jared McCann. And guess what? He didn't have a single shot tonight. At least that made it on net.
And so that's the thing. And I see, Kylie, like it's not easy to score and get assists in the NHL, right? It can't all be luck. And it's, it's not entirely luck. The shooting mentality plays a big role. Like by throwing a certain amount of extra pucks on net, like you will get rewarded a certain amount of the time. Like, yes, there are probably 100 shots like that from that same spot Stevenson shot it in the game tonight. And, maybe 1 or 2 of those go in the NHL, but you got it. I mean, what's the Gretzky quote, right? You miss 100% of the shots you don't take. There is something to be said about taking shots from those areas, especially because the Kraken just seems so blessed. I don't know, like as much as we talk about, the team not living up to expectations, they do feel really lucky this year. Whether it's shots like that going in when they do take them, or being on the positive side of the penalty ledger, right? Like they have a lot going for them luck wise. It feels like maybe lead into that. And Stevenson, he is like, to his credit, he is.
Yeah. Rally Ardivo, what happened with Capo at the end of the game? Says he got 10 minutes for abuse of officials. And yeah, I am picking that up at 18:57 of the third period. RJ Capo Caco, abuse of officials. I didn't pick that
when
up.
The empty netter was scored. Is that the same time as the empty netter?
Yes, it was. So yeah, interesting situation there. I don't know, because I was working on the graphic at that point and getting the stream,
I was
ready
getting
to go.
ready too. So
I didn't notice that, but that is interesting. That's not one that you see very often. And yeah, I
can pull that up real quick.
I wouldn't have pegged him to be the guy to get something like that.
Wasn't he just celebrating with the officials the other day?
Yeah, I know. They were on such good terms. Maybe that's why they need to make it look like they're not, so chummy.
Yeah.
I don't know. While you do that, Christian, my ECH shirt got its first win. That is awesome, Christian.
Let's go.
Appreciate the support there. Let's see. Coco said Lars would freak out if they broke up the Lars Dunn pairing. And then let's see. Where is it? Looks like maybe Jeremy had something on it. Probably said some stuff to the ref for not calling a penalty on the hit from Malkin before he scored. Jeremy's idea on that one, and I could see that.
Yeah, I could see it. I'm almost there. I'm trying to pull it back up.
Yeah. And then Jenna saying, did anyone else notice that Monty was the one to talk to the refs yet again? And Jen pointing out Monty talks to everyone. I know some people were talking earlier about him having and his conversations with Sidney Crosby in this one. RJ, Monty is one of those guys who just kind of talks to everybody. And look, he chews up a lot of ice time. He's out there for a lot of things. So I do think that him being out there when certain events happen, we're going to see him be the one to go and talk to an official if there isn't one of the more dedicated, members of the leadership group out there for the Kraken, which, by the way, I mean, the leadership group a little thin right now with Jordan Eberle and Yanni Gord out. So I'm sure Monty's just doing his part to step up.
Yeah, definitely. And he's the guy you want stepping up, I think, in those situations. And yeah, I see Kako here jawing with the official a little bit after the goal is scored, kind of in the celebration as he's skating back to the bench. So he must have said something there.
Yeah. We'll never know what it is. Lindsay, and Lindsay, not too often we see offsetting high sticking penalties. Weird. That was pretty funny.
I know that was so weird. There was a lot of weirdness in this game where they high stick each other, and I love Achari's reaction. He's like, you can just lip read, right? Both? Because imagine that too. You're in a confrontation. You got high sticked. You feel it in the face, right? And you see the ref just go like, nope, both of you're going off. Both? But yeah, they got each other. And then we haven't talked about it yet, but the clock at the end of the second period, I've never seen that before, where it's 40 seconds off.
That's so much time. Like I've seen it be a couple seconds off and then like have to address that at a stoppage or something. But yeah, 38.6 seconds. Like that's an extremely long time. And for nobody, or at least nobody that could really communicate to the broadcast team quickly to notice was kind of surprising. And I do know that we know that says like Jess Campbell picked it up and was kind of tracking the time there on the bench for the Kraken. So the Kraken kind of had an idea, because the Kraken seemed to have a better idea of what was going on than the Penguins, because the buzzer sounded and the Kraken took off. They went down the tunnel like, okay, that was it. And the Penguins all kind of hung around like, what's going on?
Now, I do wonder which players knew and which didn't, because it didn't look like the players on the ice for the Kraken were really aware of that, right? Because I think Matty Beniers was coming in for a chance, and if there's a second left on the clock, you shoot that.
Right?
Puck.
Yeah.
But as far as he knows, he doesn't know how much time is left, or there's like 40 seconds or whatever. So I do wonder how much that information was able to be disseminated. But good on Jess Campbell catching that. Like that feels very on brand for her.
No, it does. It does. So it was, just a weird situation for sure. Schultz asking, and this kind of goes to stuff we were talking about yesterday on the pod, RJ, could the Kraken play hardball with a trade and say, if you want Oliver Bjorkstrand, you need to take Andre Burakovsky? I think you could potentially do something like that. The problem is with both of their contracts combined, you're really limited as far as teams that could absorb both of those contracts at once.
Exactly. There are very few teams that could take both the full freight on both of those contracts. I mean, you're talking almost $11 million between the two of them with a commitment for next year as well. I can't really think of a team that we realistically could and would take both of those deals.
Yeah,
And especially for your team that wants Bjorkstrand, you're probably a contender who's wanting to load up for a cup run. You're not going to have $11 million in cap space free.
no, you're just not. Kitty B Kraken with the super chat here. Appreciate it. Great to see a win, but we have core problems that fall squarely with poor choices by our general manager. Ron has simply not done an acceptable job, in my humble opinion. I hope we can recover soon. Ownership must do a very serious search for a new GM. I mean, I certainly think that things are still heading in that direction. Nothing from the last 2 days, nothing that he said in that interview earlier, like we talked about, that was just kind of, whatever. Nothing has kind of changed my opinion on there needing to be somebody held accountable for how, last season, but particularly this season has gone.
Yeah, exactly. And we did talk about it at length on the podcast yesterday too. I think that's where things are headed. It's just so clear given the construction of this roster and everything. Stealing a game in Pittsburgh tonight isn't going to change the fundamental situation there.
Yeah. Yeah. And then Sean commenting back when we were talking about the ice time with Shane Wright. I understand the top line for sure, but that is wild to think that the McCann line would be that low. It is, right? Because it's not just Shane that's getting the low ice time, RJ. It's everybody who's with Shane. And Shane has played with good players on this team for a large portion of this season, right? Your two leading point scorers have been Jared McCann and Oliver Bjorkstrand. They've been with Shane Wright. You would think that they would at least be able to get that line to have more ice time than it does.
Right. And I was hopeful for that when they did put Jared McCann on a line with Shane, just thinking, okay, this has got to bump up the ice time a little bit. But really, we're seeing the opposite. We're seeing it kind of drag the ice time down for Jared McCann, with 14 minutes tonight?
Yeah.
14, 12 tonight. So not very much. And McCann hasn't played more than, 18 minutes since, just once in the new year. And it was that first game, January 2nd against Vancouver. I mean, he's been kind of back to his normal 16, 17-minute range.
Right. And Coop saying Shane was supposed to ascend to the center, the 2C spot, but Stevenson completely blocks him. And we're on year 1 of 7 with Stevenson. And also from Coop, I think they were scared after Maddie's sophomore slump and wanted Stevenson to be a safety net for 1C time if Maddie kept struggling, but he hasn't and is playing good 1C minutes. So it's Shane who gets bumped. Like I said, I do think that was the idea. It's just, that works if the team is being competitive and you're really focused on making the playoffs and you're in a tight playoff race. You're not, as a team right now, kind of playing for anything. So it doesn't kind of continue to make sense.
Exactly. I mean, the situation that you're in, like, I think, again, at a certain point, they're going to have to flip the switch. And I don't think they want to really face the reality yet. And it's hard to blame them with so many games left to go in the season. But at a certain point, right, you face the reality of just how far of a big of a hill you have to climb. And I imagine the switch will happen. It's just a matter of when. But these are still valuable reps even now that you're losing out on by not making the switch.
Yes, I agree with that. And then super chat here from Paul. Hey, fellas, I'm listening on delay and wanted to contribute. That was 100% a 2025 Kraken hockey baby game. Also, what's a Kakko 3 years from now comp? Now, that's an interesting question, RJ. Like, what does Kaapo Kakko kind of turn into in the National Hockey League? And so I'm trying to think because, it's a solidly built winger who's not afraid to go to the net front, somebody who maybe contributes on defense, or who's definitely going to contribute on defense. So I'm trying to think of like good two-way wingers that kind of do those things. I mean, anytime I think of any two-way winger right now in the NHL, I think of Mark Stone. I think Mark Stone has, demonstrated more offensive upside than Kaapo Kakko has, although maybe with him getting more ice time over 3 years, maybe Kakko develops more offensively. Is it crazy also if just very oddly, one of the first names that came to mind for me was actually Patrick Sharp?
Interesting.
And I'm looking, and Patrick Sharp actually got Selke votes for a decent amount of, for a good 5 year stretch, including finishing 10th 1 year as a winger.
Yeah, I tend to think of him as having kind of a different build, but and therefore
6'1", 200.
No, it's solid enough.
It's basically the same as Kakko because Kakko's not huge either.
Yeah.
So yeah. But I just kind of think of that playing style and kind of always being on that net side spot. I think Patrick Sharp more goal scoring ability than Kako has ever demonstrated, and Kako maybe plays a little bit more defensively. But that was the name that kind of popped into my head first for some reason.
Yeah, interesting. And I love that because you always do come up with player comps that I just never even think of. And we have some names in here. Koopse asking Rontanen, Ricky, Sam, Reinhart. I mean, stylistically, maybe Rontanen a little bit. I mean, the talent level just isn't there. And same for like a lot of
Yeah.
the guys that we mentioned, right? You know, and Reinhart, the talent level just isn't going to be at that same level. But yeah, I do think Rontanen kind of plays in similar spots and uses his big body. Kako doesn't have the same shot that Rontanen does, and so that's a big element of the game. But you know, I think that's not the worst worst comp.
Yeah, no, yeah, it's yeah. I'm just trying to think of guys who kind of play in those spots, and where
Right.
they're going to want to
Yeah. Do you remember
set
enough
up there.
of Nick Antropov?
Oh,
How about Nick
mm,
Antropov?
yeah, I would maybe need to watch some tape.
I mean, he was
But
much bigger. Antropov had much
yeah, I
larger
was gonna
frame,
say,
but from the little bit that I remember of when he played,
yeah,
um, feels kind of similar. But I mean, gosh, when did he retired from the NHL
that's
in
been a minute. Yeah,
2013? So I don't know if this is going to actually be helpful for you, Paul.
yeah.
Somebody who retired more than a decade ago that we're just throwing out there.
Yeah, yeah. All right. Let's see. I'm getting down to like where everything was, when we were talking about Chandler Stevenson and everything. Edward Chandler Stevenson does something positive, ECH less the community. Here's why that's bad, actually.
There's an element to that a little bit.
And it's maybe not that the action itself was directly bad. It's just
Right.
that there's other stuff there. Yeah, yes, maybe we have been qualifying all of his good stuff with his bad stuff too often. Um, let's see. Coco, my thought about Stevenson is that the Kraken will keep him for 4 years, then buy him out when Gru's buyout is complete. They could do that, but boy, is it tough to just run. You don't want to have to be buying guys out after buying guys out after buying guys out.
Yeah, never an ideal situation to have to be doing that.
Yeah. And then let's see. Let's see. Talk about like what's going on, in far as like things in the locker room and stuff. I mean, we just don't know what's
Yeah,
going
we
on
can't
there.
know.
Like there's just no ability for us to know what's kind of going on there and everything. And then Coop saying, "Hey RJ, don't forget that sick near side pipe snipe from Kako game 1. Kako has a ripper lol." Yeah.
He does have a good shot that he flashes at times, but it's not consistently one that's gonna. I mean, we say the same thing about Ellie Tolvanen, and you look at
Yeah.
his goal production; it's fine, but not anything
Yeah.
outstanding.
And then Sean saying, "All I know is I really like Capo, and I think the team needs to start pumping some Kako media. Time to get to know him more." I do agree with that. I do think that team, it's been a struggle, and I did say this back before the season started, right? That the Kraken Hockey Network was going to be new, and they are going to be very focused on figuring out their game broadcast, and we're probably not going to get a lot of the supplemental material that we got from the team the previous couple of years once they were a little bit more entrenched with Root and they knew where they could allocate their resources, what they were going to have time for, what the vision overall was going to be. And everybody, not just like the on-air talent, but everybody throughout the whole system from like a production standpoint was going to be comfortable and being able to start producing that content. And so I think that, yes, we have had less of some of that behind the scenes get to know guys than we've had in years past. And I think it's just simply because the Kraken Hockey Network is still trying to figure out what they're going to be, where they're going to, spend their money and how they're going to go about doing those things now that they're on their own and they don't necessarily have a larger body above them kind of dictating what all of those things are going to look like. So I think that's why we haven't seen a lot of that stuff. And then it's going to be extra hard because him coming over mid-season, so much of that work that they do for a lot of that stuff that they'll drop months later with the team and getting to know the players is actually done at their media day way back during training camp. And so Capo Caco not being around for media day, RJ, means there's not really a lot of Capo Caco, stuff for them to work with, media, for them to work with, kind of that they can, throw out there and do something with.
Yeah, and that's what I was gonna say, is a lot of that stuff is done media day. And also just the fact that the Kraken have been on the road for so much of Kako's time with the team
Yeah.
in the beginning, and you just had that brief home stretch, and then of course you had the Christmas break. And so that gets in the way of a lot of these things. So, they'll have time to eventually get some more Kako content, but they just need to be at home for extra time there. And as Kylie was saying, there was a decent one on the Kraken Audio Network the other day. Yeah, I know Mike Benton and those guys do a good job.
Yeah.
So good to hear something from him.
Yeah. Oh man, if anybody's going to be able to get in with any like newly acquired player and get those first good interviews out, it is going to be Mike Benton for sure.
He's
Like
great at that. Yeah.
he is just so awesome in all the work that he does for sure. All right, RJ, I think we could wrap this up. We're an hour in. Look at, we'll see what this game against Winnipeg's going to be. See what the weather in Winnipeg's going to be. I can't imagine mid-January it's that great in Winnipeg this
Probably
time.
not.
But hey, maybe it's a very sunny and balmy, like 8 degrees Fahrenheit.
Yeah, I think most people would take that. I feel like the
Yeah.
Vancouver Canucks probably had it rough. I mean, I think that game just went final, losing to Winnipeg 6-1. So that'll be the game the Jets, I think, are coming off of a beating of the Vancouver Canucks, who are just an absolute free fall right now. So we'll see if they're able to kind of keep that going. I think Kyle Connor had a natural hat trick.
He did
to start that game off. So Jets are rolling right now. Kraken, I mean, I said this before the Detroit game, after the Buffalo game, right? They will need more than 10 minutes of effort to win that one. They'll need probably a full 60 in order to win it. So we'll see if they are able to rise to that challenge.
We will see indeed. And you can see if the Kraken do that over at Queen Anne Beer Hall. It is another road game, and that means everybody should go to Queen Anne Beer Hall to watch it and hang out. And again, then you just stay, you roll right into your next round of beer and pretzels, and you just pop on the post game on your phone. You get to enjoy that. It's a no lose situation over there at Queen Anne Beer Hall. So I want to thank them for sponsoring the post game live as always. Thanks everybody so much for being here for this one, and we will see you all next time.